Hi, and welcome to Power of the Network. I'm your host, Tim Locker, Vice President of Broadband here at CBM. One of my favorite parts about doing these podcasts is, it helps get me out of my shell, moves me into some of the other parts of our company, allows me to kind of learn about, the different industries and actually build relations and talk to some of our manufacturers that we work for. And we're going to do that very thing today. So we've got Mr. Jon Reddemann. He's our regional manager with nVent on the HVAC side of the business. So I'm going to introduce myself to him today, and we're going to have a little conversation about the HVAC industry, and we'll see where it takes us. Follow along. Jon, thanks for joining us. I know you had to get up early out there in Arizona this morning to meet our times, but we appreciate you getting on with us. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Let's just kind of start. How's the weather? We're in Kansas City, and it's a little warmer day today, but they have a pile of snow, a bunch of snow in Kansas City this year. I don't know if you saw I saw, I don't know if it was a TikTok or YouTube or whatever, but a video of some kid snowboarding, down the streets of downtown, and it was pretty wild. So
take advantage of it. Yeah, we don't have to worry about that here in Phoenix. It'll be mid 50s today, nice and sunny, not a cloud in the sky. So
that's not too bad.
Yeah, not too bad. You endure, a couple 3 months of some kind of brutal heat, but then you've got 8 months or so of just absolutely beautiful weather. So kind of the same thing.
You're from the Midwest and spent a bunch of time up in the Minneapolis area. Was it just your territory, your job that took you to Arizona?
The job, right?
Yeah.
So when I came to Hoffman back in 2008, I was the manager of our aftermarket services group, which was up at the factory, and I managed that team for 5 years, give or take. And I had an opportunity to get into the regional sales role, and with that, I chose to move out west. So at the time, I was covering the Western region, the Northwestern region, and the South Central region. And I had an opportunity to choose where I wanted to live. And being an avid motorcyclist, Arizona seemed like a great place. So because it's kind of centrally located between, California, New Mexico, Colorado. So that was one of the deciding factors to move to the Arizona. And also, it's a very convenient location to cover the region at the time, and just kind of planted roots and have been here going on 11 years now.
Oh, that's awesome. What kind of bike do you have?
I actually have 3. I have 2 Harley Davidsons, and I have a Yamaha VMAX. So
wow.
I traded in the hot rods for some motorcycles quite a few years back, and haven't really looked back. So everybody's got a hobby.
Oh yeah, my hobby's hunting and fishing. So I've got a bass boat that doesn't see the water near enough, but we're working on that. So
that's big. That's big sporting up there by you, isn't it?
Yeah,
bass fishing.
Yeah, for sure. There's some good fishing down in your area, but it's a little drier. But Lake Havasu's got some good fishing at different places. But I had the only motorcycle I've ever had. I was probably 14, and I was given a 1966 Honda Dream, a 90cc. And if you had a good wind behind you, you could get her up to 60, but it was a neat old bike. It was just perfect condition. So I'd ride that around.
Probably about 100 pounds soaking wet too.
Yeah. And it's been a long time since I've been 100 pounds, trust me. But, I wasn't even old enough to ride it. So we had a kind of a community lane that was behind the street that I grew up on. And so I would race it around back there, and once in a while I would brave it down the highway and hope I didn't get caught, but so that's the bulk of my motorcycle career right there. So
awesome.
I've got a cousin that's a surgeon, and he just always drilled into me, the safety factor, and so I've always been a little bit leery of them, people pulling out in front of you, but Have you had any close calls?
I've actually crashed a few times.
Have you?
Yeah. One of them was at 100 miles an hour up in Sturgis back in 2019.
Wow.
Yeah. So
did you get hurt pretty bad or no?
People don't believe me, but the wife, she was on the back. She'll attest to it. I got back on that thing and I rode 100 miles an hour, 50 miles back into downtown Sturgis.
Wow. It's the only way. You just got to get right back on and go, huh?
Yeah. So that's pretty
insane.
Crazy.
When I was in high school, we were just messing around, but I got on the back of a motorcycle with another guy. And I remember just being afraid for my life. We were going so fast up. It was Highway 61 over in eastern Iowa, and I'd peek around his shoulder, and we're doing 140 on that motorcycle, and I was just like, "Get me off of here!" So, I've never been a go fast guy. Even in the boat, I'll just kind of take it easy. I'll get there when I need to get there. So
that's that's not a bad way to be. I competitively drag raced up in Minnesota for about 6 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I'm going to round out 54 here in March, and I'm thinking about taking my VMAX and turning that into a drag bike and go back into drag racing. So, I like the competitive aspect of it. Right?
Yeah. Were you drag racing bikes before or cars?
Cars. Yeah. So I built the '67 Camaro, kind of a street legal drag car.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was fun. But yeah, like I said, I just like the competitiveness of it, and I like the strategic planning aspect of it. Right. So, you spend 6 weeks trying to prepare to compete for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's which is kind of interesting because that's what I do in my professional life, right? So when I schedule a trip to come out and run with you guys, I'll spend a month taking a look at the accounts, kind of refreshing. I have such a large territory with so many different accounts. I kind of lose track of them from time to time.
Oh,
so
for sure.
I'll spend time to kind of prepare for the meetings and kind of refresh. And like if it's a conversion account, what I like to do is take a look at, what do they do? What industries do they serve? What vertical markets, sub-markets? And, I work with your sales guys on who do they use, right? And why, and I try to formulate the conversations when we get into those meetings and ask those customers, how did you come to the decision to use X? And, and I try to formulate those conversations ahead of time. So, my hobby has really kind of helped me move forward, in this aspect of my career. Right.
Yeah.
Because again, I like the competitiveness of it. I like the chase, so,
yeah. So kind of a mindset that just rolls from one to the next. And I'm glad you mentioned the preparing. Our company, we invested in our sales folks last year, and we put everybody through, a sales training. It was the action selling, and it's, one of the biggest things is being prepared. And I think so many times salespeople just wing it, and don't put enough thought up front.
Yeah.
And then the second piece just being the questions, it's interesting. Even, I've been in sales a long time myself, but even just going through that class myself last year, and I think it's probably better after you have some experience, because then those things kind of pop up and you're like, oh yeah, how many times have I done that wrong? Or how many times have I done this wrong? So it kind of sheds light on it. But yeah, asking the right questions, that's the key to everything. And I think
exactly,
you can kind of read a meeting, if you're sitting there and you're talking to somebody and they're checking their watch or looking at their phone, and you don't have them, right? But if you ask the right question, I was at a meeting just yesterday, and I could see it, because never met the guy before, first time, and so they're skeptical. What's this dude here for? but and you could see those cues, and then just by changing my questions, I mean, he literally just like turned his body and leaned in, and he's totally engaged. So so much of that gets missed, and I think that's a big part of why salespeople aren't successful. So
yeah. So when I first got into outside sales with Lennox back in the mid to late 90s, they put me through a sales training course called Counselor Salesperson, and it was really kind of teaching you how to ask questions. And for a long time, I really struggled with how to ask open-ended questions, like to get an audience engaged. And over the years, I've really kind of learned what that actually means. And a little bit different for me than you being a little bit more local, that I don't get a lot of time in front of customers the way that you guys do. So I have to leverage your relationship to try to have that conversation, right? I do a lot of lunch and learn with engineering firms, and not exactly the most personable people from time to time. So, getting them to open up and actually have a conversation can be a little bit challenging, and learning, what questions to ask and how to get them engaged, right? And if you can get a customer to talk about, what they like about what they're doing, what they don't like about what they're doing, right? Then you can start to have a productive conversation. And especially when it comes to like conversion accounts, I pride myself on knowing my competition better than anyone, right? I think my competition probably knows a little bit about who we are and kind of what we bring to the market. But I know the challenges that our customers and your customers have when using competitive product. And I have an answer. I have a solution for every one of those issues. So, I let the customers talk about, who they're using, why they're using them. And, I love that they like to tell me that, nope, we don't have any problems.
Yeah.
Fast forward 20 minutes into the conversation. Oh yeah. Well, we're experiencing this and we're experiencing that. And I start to ask some additional questions and then kind of lead them down the path of what, our solutions would potentially, solve those issues, right? Or challenges or whatever it might be. So,
one thing I've kind of learned over the years too, and I think it takes a little experience and a little time, but, we're just dealing with people, right? And everybody's going to be defensive. Most people aren't outgoing and want to talk to everybody. And so here comes this new guy trying to sell me something, and you're just going to put your guard up naturally. Yeah. So you just have to be a real person. And I think that takes a lot of the edge off as well.
Well, Tim, at the end of the day, we're all here to make a little bit of money, right? We all have to be profitable. Yes, the customer's going to beat us up on price because they want to make more money, right? Unfortunately, it is what it is. But if you beat me up on price to the point that I can't be profitable, then I'm not going to be in business, and then I can't service you, right? So, we have to have a gentleman's conversation and say, look, and once we get past that, right, and we start to work towards whatever solution that is, you guys represent the best products in the industry. I consider, that we have for what I represent, I have the best product in the industry. I will never apologize for the quality or what we provide to the customer, right? So it's all about providing the proper solution so that our customers can serve their customers, right? Because if our customers serve their customers, then we have repeat customers. It's really that simple. I don't know that we need to make it more complex than that, right? So there's always going to be a little bit of negotiating back and forth, but at the end of the day,
the price thing is never the issue. How many times have you? It's maybe blamed on price, but there's always something deeper. There's something. I was with a guy yesterday, and it was a new account for me. Just met this guy, but we very kind of quickly had a pretty good understanding. We've both been in the business for a while, so we kind of understood each other, and both of us were not afraid to ask tougher questions. And he's using a competitive product to one of ours. And so I just asked him, I said, just, I know the answer, but I'm curious to see how you will answer it. But I'm like, how big of a deal is price? Mm-hmm. And he just kind of grins. He's like, it's not, a couple pennies here and there. It's not price. It's, this guy is here every other week. He does training for our folks, all these different things, and it's relationships. That's entirely what it is. So it's, whenever the price comes up, it's 9 out of 10 times not the issue. It's what's actually going on.
So I get the fortunate ability to sell a product that primarily goes through our channel partners when none of my competition does, right? Yeah. So that adds a level of price difficulty, right?
Yep.
I sell the highest quality product in the industry, right? Which also adds a level of price difficulty. And I also sell a product that engineers go out of their way to design it out of the system due to perceived reliability and perceived cost. Yeah. So I get to come in at the very end of the panel build conversation and then try to sell my product. So I'm very, very familiar with those price discussions. Yeah. And I never go into a conversation, especially a conversion conversation, talking about price because I can build you the cheapest product that you want to pay for.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what you'll get, right?
Exactly.
But that's not who we are as a company, right? That's not what we bring to market as our product, and we're very proud of that. What we like to do, and what I like to do, is make sure that we're applying the correct product for the correct application. And I have spent a very large portion of the 16 going on 17 years of my career helping customers correct issues that our competition can't, right?
Yeah.
I bring a very unique skill set to this role. I think more so than anyone else. I do know a couple of my competitors' sales folks. I have a pretty extensive HVAC career. It's kind of the only thing that I know. What I know about boxes is my stuff bolts to and it cools it, right?
So many of our products, with Hoffman, they're just kind of behind the scenes. The general public really doesn't probably understand. People in the industry obviously understand how big and how many products and the quality, but people in everyday life don't understand what's going on in the background. What our products do, and probably even more so in the HVAC side of things.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Some of the infrastructure that those products are protecting, are critical to people's everyday lives, and it just sits there quietly working in the background. So that's one thing I was thinking about as we were preparing for this is like, how do your products relate to the general public? What kind of things would people be missing, in a product failure?
Okay. So what I love about what I do for a living is I literally touch every single industry that you can imagine. Literally every single industry. Food and beverage, whether it comes to processing, bottling, packaging, even all the way, if you want to follow the food chain, all the way even down into the lumber mills to process the lumber to make the pallets. We work with companies up in the Northwest area, to even just make the lumber, right? Yeah. We work with, companies that make the plastic film to wrap the pallets. We work with the companies that are actually making the food. So every aspect of any industry that you could think of, we are in there in some way, shape, or form. Oil and gas, telecom, battery manufacturing, battery recycling. I'll give you a perfect example. Up in the Northwest, they had just built a new wastewater treatment facility in one of the valleys, let's call it Eastern Washington. And there were some design challenges from one of the automation companies, and they were having a lot of failures on our product. And I don't typically like to talk about failures, sure, but this was a design-related issue. So I went out, and what was happening is when this system would fail, it would shut down the wastewater pump, and things would literally start to back up, right? And this is a brand new facility that they'd put in because it was an already taxed infrastructure. So every time that pumping system would overheat and shut down, it was a 9/11 fire. So we went out there to take a look at it, and the engineers that designed the system had designed the panel to be in a non-conditioned space. So they put a larger cooling system onto the panel. Well, it happened to be a conditioned space, so the cooling system was 4 times larger than it needed to be. So it was literally cycling every 70 seconds to 90 seconds, 70 seconds to 90 seconds. So, think of running 100 miles an hour, block to block, stoplight to stoplight, right? You're going to wear out the components of your car really, really quick. So that's what was happening with that system. So we got them into the correct system, and this was 10, 11 years ago. I've been back there a couple times. They've not had any challenges or issues since. So that would be one scenario, right? We provide battery cooling systems for battery backups, and then also for microwave radio cabinets, right? So 911 radio cabinets. Well, what does your microwave do in your home? It creates a bunch of heat, right?
Yeah.
So does a microwave radio. So, if a cooling system fails on a radio cabinet, that radio cabinet will overheat, and you try to go make a 911 call, it actually won't go through. So, these are very, very critical infrastructure type of things that, we deal with every day. And that's why, when I say I work with customers on applications and try to help them with some of their challenges, it's so important that we get the application correct, right? Yeah. My competition doesn't spend the time in front of the customers the way that you and I do to make sure that we do it right.
What is it like working for CBM? Our culture is built around our ESOP. Employee ownership is something that we talk about every day. We empower our employees to make decisions, do what's right for their customers, do what's right for our manufacturers, and really, truly have an impact in our company. We've currently got some openings. If you're interested in working for a top quality rep firm here in the Midwest, we do have some openings. Go to our website and click on the careers tab, and you can see what we have available. Reach out to us here at cbmrep.com.
I pride myself on making sure that, what we do is the right thing at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, because selling the wrong thing, that it just goes back to that relationship. It all ties back, selling something that's not right. You might get that one sale, if it's price or whatever, but you're not going to get the next one because, it's not a good long-term solution. So go ahead.
Just one more example real quick, if you will. Down here in Phoenix, Valley Metro was doing a rail extension project and worked with the engineers kind of on the, all of the platform stuff, if you will. And they had worked on some stuff in the Bay Area, and they were having some issues, and they used a competitive product, and the competitor said, here, throw a heater in it, but it didn't solve the problem. So, you fast forward about 6 months, this engineer calls me up and he says, hey, I remember you from Phoenix, kind of wondering if you can help me out because I'm not getting any support from your competitor. He said, I'm not going to buy anything, but I just don't know where else to go. So I spent a couple of weeks trying to help him identify what was going on, ran some calculations, said, I think that this is really going to solve your issue, solve your problem. And, if not, next time I'm up in the Bay Area, we'll go take a look at it for you. So, it's all about helping people with the right stuff and gaining that trust, right?
Yeah, doing the right thing. And that's the same whether it's business or, personal stuff. You just have to do the right thing.
Carry yourself with integrity, and you'll never have to apologize for who you are.
Yeah, well put. Well put. One of the things, I guess, hot topics in the industry, we hear a lot about energy storage. Mm-hmm. What is your play in that world? First, I guess, give folks an overview of what are we even talking about when it's energy storage, and then I guess what's your role in that? Okay.
So, that's a great topic. It's an emerging market, right? And everyone's really running into that market head first. From my world on the cooling side of it, it's a little bit of the Wild West. Batteries are kind of defined. The application is kind of defined, and I'll get into that in a second. But when it comes to the cooling aspect of it, and you get into the nitty gritties, which I won't here, it's a little bit of the Wild West, and there isn't a defined set of standards yet, right? Everyone's kind of doing what they think is the right thing. At least that's what I've been learning. When it comes to renewables and battery energy storage, that is a vertical market that we as an organization are focusing very heavily on, right? We've got vertical market managers and product managers that's really, and business development managers that's what they're focusing on. At high level, think about this. We have all of these solar farms and all of these wind farms, right? And they can produce energy, but if you don't use it, you burn it off. And I'd heard a statistic at one point where 60% of the energy that we produce daily gets burned off because we don't have any place to put it, right? So, and
it's kind of crazy when you think, because we also hear, we don't have the infrastructure to do all the things we're wanting to do, but yet we're wasting that much energy. It's kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah, exactly. So I drove out to Automation Fair in Anaheim back in November, and I haven't driven out to LA for quite a while, and the expansion of solar fields from Phoenix to LA is just massive. Yeah. And what's interesting is you're starting to see, you can see them off in the distance, and these fields are now 3 times what they used to be, but now you're starting to see these little white boxes plugged next to these fields. Those are battery energy storage systems to store the power that's being produced during the day, right?
Yeah.
You've got some grid systems within our country that are a little bit more unstable than others, and putting a battery next to that grid kind of helps stabilize that a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So as solar, if you think about it, once that field is in, that's free energy. We capture that. We either have to use it or we have to put it someplace. And, as we start to build more solar fields, more wind farms, if we can put that someplace, then we don't have to build power plants, right? We can prolong, building a power plant. And you can build a small power plant like a peak shaving plant fairly easily, but, to service an entire metro market, that's a multi-year project. That doesn't happen as easy as plugging batteries into a solar field, right?
Yeah.
So,
how big of an impact are the data centers making? I'm being told that they're looking to be the biggest draw on our power.
Huge, absolutely.
So what's our role there?
Well, I'm not really on the data side of it per se, but if we take a look at the power consumption in industrial automation and just think about computer chip power and the amount of computing power that even a laptop is today, right?
Yeah.
Computer chips are about as efficient as they're going to get. So in order to get more computing power, you have to consume more power. And with this AI revolution coming, that is a huge push, is the amount of power consumption that these data centers are consuming, right?
Yeah.
And here in the Phoenix Valley area, there's quite a few data centers that are going up between Meta, Google, and I think some cloud storage in general. Yeah. And it's interesting because one of them is right outside of Phoenix. It's plugged right next to us, literally right next to a substation. Google is building a data center out in the East Mesa area, which is essentially right next to a large battery energy storage facility. So wow. I think that, I'm not into the data world, but just conceptually, it's if I transition my industrial knowledge, it's a huge impact.
Yeah. And in terms of the heating and cooling, I guess if there's power, there's heat, right? So exactly. It comes into play somewhere. So what do you got?
Exactly.
Okay, so obviously our power needs they're not going down. They're never going to go down. They continue to go up. And we hear a lot about nuclear. What's your thoughts on that versus renewable energy?
Well, I think there's definitely the need for renewable, right? That absolutely makes a lot of sense. Nuclear, from what I know back in my energy manager days and working with utilities, nuclear is the most efficient form of energy production that we have. Right, as compared to coal or natural gas. Right, natural gas we know is going to be cleaner than coal, but the technology in coal is so much better than it used to be. But ultimately, nuclear is the most efficient form. And when you have these large data centers that are consuming these massive amounts of power, we've got to give them the most efficient energy that we can produce. Now, not being tied to that utility world much anymore, I don't know what those federal regulations look like, but if that comes about as an infrastructure play, we as a company are positioned to be able to support that. Electrical panels, cooling those panels, all of the things, connecting those panels with, ILSCO and Caddy and all of the other, products that nVent offers. But ultimately, I think that we as a country really need to move in that direction, just from an efficiency perspective, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because at that point we're not consuming and burning hydrocarbons, which is that's kind of a EPA clean air play, if you will.
Yeah.
But that's the high level, kind of as I know it. And if I had a crystal ball, that's kind of how I would look at it. But
now you talk nuclear and it's just a big scary word. Well, what's the downside to it? I grew up in I was born in 75, so really grew up in the 80s. And I remember the Chernobyl plant, blowing up. And so I think most people, that's where their mind goes when you think nuclear, whether it's a safety or a storage or, but really what's the downside?
Well, and then you had the issue in Japan a few years back, right? So there's there's that scare, but there are newer technologies that I'm not. I had a conversation with a contractor in Denver a few months back, and we were actually talking about this, and he was explaining that there are newer technologies to, if there were a challenge or an issue, to be able to capture and consolidate that, as compared to technologies of yesterday, right?
Sure.
At a high level, that's what I know, and I think that there has to be other technologies that are available that would allow us to move in that direction, as compared to what we did 30, 40 years ago, right?
Sure. Okay.
Right. So, but everyone thinks of the China syndrome, Chernobyl, and the world is going to evaporate overnight, right? So, but I don't necessarily believe that's the case anymore.
Yeah. Well, but sometimes memories are stronger than we can overcome sometimes, and perception is reality a lot of times.
Absolutely.
That's one thing I find interesting is just because you think something is a certain way, that's your perception. So that's your truth, whether it's true or not. So.
Yeah, 100% agree. So
let's take a little turn. So I understand you had ran your own HVAC company years ago. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I did. For about 7 or 8 years, I kind of started out, side, nights and weekends, and I did that for for most of that time frame, right? Trying to build business to the point of, I'd gotten to a point where I had to make a decision that I was either going to go do that full time, or just kind of keep it as a weekend hobby, if you will, right? Well, the 2008 crash happened, and I was selling into the industry at the time. And, mechanical contractors, electrical contractors, those guys that were running, 80 trucks were now only running 40 trucks, right?
Yeah.
And they weren't replacing them. So So, the business that I was picking up as say a one truck Johnny, I was still licensed, bonded, and insured.
Sure.
Those folks were now picking up that work that I was getting at a third of the price that I was charging. Right.
Yeah.
So I had to make a decision of, did I want to go be an employee, or did I want to try to suffer this thing out for the next few years? And I just decided that, for right now, I think I'm going to just kind of hang up my shingle and maybe revisit it, later on down the road. And, fast forward 6 months, I ended up getting recruited and brought into Pentair nVent Hoffman, which has been fantastic. Right. So
yeah, it all worked out.
It really did. It really did. It kind of set me up for, being able to bring a certain skill set into this role that, a lot of other folks don't have. So,
yeah, you've actually got field experience and a better understanding. What do you think is one important lesson you learned, running your own business that's really helped you where you're at now?
Serve your customers right. That's it.
Yep.
Serve your customers right. Do what's right by your customer. Don't try to sell something that they shouldn't have. Advise them correctly and let them make their decision accordingly. Right.
Yeah.
So, give them all of the necessary knowledge to be able to make their decision and support whichever decision they choose. Right. At the end of the day, the customer is always right. But, if you advise them properly, then you've carried yourself with integrity.
That's a perfect answer. Perfect answer.
So,
do you have any mentors that you want to mention? Anybody that's led you in the right direction that you want to give a shout out to, or any specific Tim, lessons?
I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for everyone around me. Everyone that I work with has supported me in some aspect of my career. I can go back to the Lennox days of 25, 30 years ago. There's just so many people, and even within Hoffman, Bob Calavoda, Peggy Barata, John Bice, Mark Lamps. Just John Skocky, just a whole slew of people that I've worked with over the years that have really helped me be successful. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here. Right. I really owe my success to everyone around me, and including you guys. Right. You just a phenomenal salespeople, and you guys all make me look good. So
well, thank you. We certainly try.
You do a great job at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does it look like for you in terms of mentoring others? Is there folks you're bringing up? At some point, we're all replaceable, and we got to bring up the next generation. So, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. Those are some conversations that we've been having internally, right? Kind of strengthening our bench a little bit. It's transferring as much knowledge as I can out to you guys in the field, right? The local sales teams to be able to have these discussions with customers on a daily basis. And, we're all replaceable, right?
Yeah.
There will be someone behind me at some point. But the best thing that I can do is just, impart as much knowledge as I can to you guys, and, we'll see what happens. Right. I'll just give you as much as I can to help you guys be as successful as you can. Right.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there, but I just wanted to say thank you, and our relationship with nVent is obviously very important to us as a company as well, and we appreciate everything you do for us and our team. So, just thank you.
Oh, Tim, thank you. I had a great time today. Really, really do appreciate the opportunity to chat with you. It's been fun. It's been awesome. So, again, thank you. It's an honor.
You. All right. Have a good one. Thank you.
Thanks. Take care.
Thanks again to Jon for joining us. He had to get up early. He's out in Arizona in another time zone, and he accommodated us. It was great conversation. It was great for me to meet him and get to know a little bit more about him and bring some of that to you. So thanks again, Jon. Remember, if you need help on a project or looking for a manufacturer's rep to bring you a great sales team and quality service, look no further than CBM. You can find us here at cbmrep.com. As always, like, share, subscribe, and until next time, we'll see you next time.